Well, welcome to Christian Answers. This is Pastor Jeff Short. Glad to have you along for today's program. Today we're going to be talking about something that's happening in Washington, D.C. right now, and that is the confirmation hearing a lot of the Biden appointments to the cabinet level executive positions. And one of them is a transgender person, a Dr. Rachel Levine. And she is the supposedly first transgender person appointed to a cabinet position. And she is being questioned by the senators. And some of the most appalling, disgusting philosophies are coming out of her mouth. And here's a woman. She's not a woman. She's a man. Here's a man posing as a woman who is presenting himself as a woman, who is dressing like a woman, but he is a man. He is biologically a man, and he is trying to tell people that now he is a woman. And so he has a dress on and he has pearls on, and it's a disgusting display of total, utter confusion on his part. But he's going to be one of the leading officials in our government, and he is going to implement policies and carry out policies that will affect a lot of lives in the negative direction, destructive lives. And the Bible is very clear on this. It says in the Old Testament, it says a man should not wear clothing that pertains to a woman should not wear clothing as pertaining to a man. Very, very clear. God does not want genders confused. He does not want men confused with women and women confused with men. He does not want this mix and match. People saying that they're a man when they're actually a woman, and people saying that they're a woman when they're actually a man, like this Dr. Levine, Rachel Levine. He has obviously changed his name from whatever it was before to Rachel, and now he's presenting himself as a man. This used to be called Transvestite-ism, where you have the vestite, the clothing of a man, clothing of a woman instead of a man is pertaining to your biological sex. This is a direct violation of the biblical command of God in the Old Testament, direct violation of it. Here is a man who is presenting himself as a woman, and we'll see that in this presentation. So let's jump into this presentation. I'm going to roll this video clip. We're going to hear Senator Rand Paul's comments on this whole process, and we're going to see some of the dishonesty. It's not just a matter of this person presenting themselves in a sinful way as a member of the opposite sex. No, it's the whole philosophy behind it. So we're gonna get into that. So let's bring up the video here, and there is the clip. And let me get into it, and we'll make some comments, and we'll stop it at certain times. And you will see for yourself that this person is trying to live a lie, trying to pass off this lie on society, and actually in the result of that, harming especially children and teenagers who are highly impressionable at this age. They're going to look to this person and say, well, see, that person is a different sex. They changed their sex and they identify as a different sex. So then they think they can do that also as young people. And this is a problem. It's a growing problem in especially the teenage girls in our society. They're suddenly wanting to become boys, and they're actually harming their bodies to do that, and we'll hear Rand Paul talk about that. So let's jump into that video and watch, and then I'll stop and comment at certain sections.
Genital mutilation has been nearly universally condemned. Genital mutilation has been condemned by the WHO, the United Nations Children's Fund, the United Nations Population Fund. According to the WHO, genital mutilation is recognized internationally as a violation of human rights. Genital mutilation is considered particularly egregious because, as the WHO notes, It is nearly always carried out on minors and is a violation of the rights of children. Most genital mutilation is not typically performed by force, but as WHO notes, that by social convention, social norm, the social pressure to conform, to do what others do and have been doing, as well as the need to be accepted socially and the fear of being rejected by the community. American culture is now normalizing the idea that minors can be given hormones to prevent their biological development of their secondary.
Now, this is, you have to understand the context here. There has been a book released recently by a woman named Abigail Schreier, and I've spoken about this book on previous broadcasts, and it's called, uh, well, let's see, what is the title? I can't remember the title, but it's about girls in teenage years in high school and junior high who are, and quite a few of these girls are altering their bodies to become boys. I mentioned that a little bit before in the introduction. Um, Irreplaceable damage, or irreparable damage, is the title of the book. Irreplaceable damage. And it's being sold now on Amazon. Now, there was a point where Amazon actually took this book down because of the LGBTQ lobby. This is, again, another problem we're facing in society. We're facing this massive censorship on the part of big tech and the mainstream media. And so this book, Irreversible Damage, by Abigail Schreier, that outlines exactly what Rand Paul is talking about. Young people altering their bodies, pumping chemicals into their bodies, and then it's irreversible. It can't be changed. And so this is a major problem in our high school and junior high campuses across the country. But this book was removed from Amazon because it was too controversial. Can you imagine? Here you have someone, a secular, actually a leftist writer, a woman, New York writer, who exposes this problem, and her book is pulled by the powerful Amazon and big tech company because it doesn't conform with the politically correct philosophy in Washington right now with the leftist Democrats. And so this Rachel Levine, this this man posing as a woman up for nomination for a cabinet position, she is going to actually defend this idea that you can give children hormones and alter their bodies because it's supposed to be their right to choose. And Rand Paul is going to demolish that argument, but let's hear some more of what he's saying.
Sexual characteristics. Dr. Levine, you have supported both allowing minors to be given hormone blockers to prevent them from going through puberty, as well as surgical destruction of a minor's genitalia. Like surgical mutilation, hormonal interruption of puberty can permanently alter and prevent secondary sexual characteristics. The American College of Pediatricians reports that 80 to 95% of prepubertal children with gender dysphoria will experience resolution by late adolescence if not exposed to medical intervention and social affirmation. Dr. Levine, do you believe that minors are capable of making such a life-changing decision as changing one's sex?
Okay, so this question is being posed to this dude dressed up like a woman, making a mockery of our entire government process. This is a circus, and here is a clown, and he is posing as a woman. He's a transvestite. He has women's vests on, women's clothes, and he's trying to argue that mutilation of children's body and pumping them with chemicals is perfectly okay. Now, in past writings, this man, this dude, dressed up like a woman, has argued that it's perfectly okay for society to allow children to mutilate their bodies and to pump chemicals into them to achieve what they hope will be a transformation into the opposite sex. This man has already argued that he's in favor of that. But let's hear his weasel worms, what he says, weasel words. Let's hear what he actually says, because it has nothing to do with the question.
Well, Senator, thank you for your interest in this question. Transgender medicine is a very complex and nuanced field with robust research and standards of care that have been developed. And if I am fortunate enough to be confirmed as the Assistant Secretary of Health, I would look forward to working with you and your office and coming to your office and discussing the particulars of the standards of care for transgender medicine.
The specific question was about
That is the most evasive non-answer that I have ever heard anyone nominated for any position in the U.S. government give. I mean, we're used to hearing the kind of weasel words coming out of Supreme Court justices when they're under questioning by the Senate Judiciary Committee. We're used to hearing them try to beg out of answering the question. And for example, in the Supreme Court nominees, they usually say, well, I can't actually get into the details and talk about that specific situation because it might be something that I am presented with on the bench, and I don't want to lock myself into a position, and I don't want to bias myself already before I actually hear the details of the case. So a lot of the judges will say, I'm sorry, I can't comment on that specific topic. This dude dressed up like a woman doesn't even do that. This dude, this guy, this transvestite, making a mockery of our government process, making a mockery of the whole Senate confirmation hearings to cabinet level positions, he is actually going to avoid and totally evade the question that Senator Rand Paul asked and go out on some spiel about the robust research in transgenderism and blah, 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 blah. Rand Paul asked him a very simple question. And the simple question is, do you support the idea of giving young children and teenagers puberty blockers in order to stop their natural progression, the way young people grow and mature? Are you willing and are you totally okay with stopping their natural puberty process with these puberty blockers, these chemicals pumped into their body? And are you okay with, for example, teenage girls mutilating their bodies, cutting off their breasts, having surgery to remove their breasts in order to achieve some transgender situation? And that's the question. It's a very easy to answer question. And if this person really believes what they're saying and what they've said in the past, they will answer it honestly. But this dude dressed up like a woman won't even give the committee the courtesy of answering a question honestly when he has already written on these subjects and explained his position clearly. He won't even state his own publicly written position because he wants to lie and obfuscate, and he wants to twist and turn. This is the whole premise of the transgender movement. They twist and they turn and they distort what God has given them in the body that God gave them. They want to twist it into something else. And here they want to twist the words and twist the replies to try to deceive the public so that they don't have to come right out and say what they really believe, because what they really believe is so gross and ugly and immoral that most people in our country would reject it. And yet, this person is trying to get away with lying to the committee when, in fact, Rand Paul is going to ask him again, do you believe that it's okay for children to be given puberty blockers before they even know anything about life?
minors. Let's be a little more specific since you evaded the question. Do you support the government intervening to override the parent's consent to give a child puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and/or amputation surgery of breasts and genitalia? You have said that you're willing to accelerate the protocols for street kids. I'm alarmed that poor kids with no parents who are homeless and distraught, you would just go through this and allow that to happen to a minor. I would hope that you would have compassion for Kira Bell, who's a 23-year-old girl who was confused with her identity. At 14, she read on the internet about something about transsexual. She thought, well, maybe that's what I am. She ended up getting these puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones. She had her breasts amputated. But here's what ultimately she says now. And this is a very insightful decision from someone who made a mistake but was led to believe this was a good thing by the medical community. I made a brash decision as a teenager, as a lot of teenagers do, trying to find confidence and happiness, except now the rest of my life will be negatively affected, she said, adding that the medicalized gender transitioning was a very temporary, superficial fix for a very complex identity issue. What I'm alarmed at is that you're not willing to say absolutely minors shouldn't be making decisions to amputate their breast or to amputate their genitalia. For most of our history, we believe that minors don't have full rights and the parents need to be involved.
Yes, and this is so good because he is bringing out the reality of the situation. And this Abigail Schreier Irreversible Damage book explains case after case after case where the vast, vast majority of these young people and the children and young people who get into their head by usually through watching videos on the internet, YouTube, or in Twitter feeds, they get into their head that they think it's cool or they think it's the right thing to do. They're kids, they're children a lot of times. They think it's the right thing to do to try to be the opposite sex. Maybe they see their little girls and they see all the boys getting to do what they think are all the fun things, and they want to be a boy. And so instead of just being a tomboy and then getting over that phase and then later on in the teenage years growing into a normal woman like 99.9% women do, they get into their head, oh, I'm not just a tomboy, I should try to become a boy. And so they take the chemicals and they have their breasts removed. And the medical community, states Abigail Schreier, is seemingly going along with this. Nobody wants to say no because the LGBTQ lobby will come down hard on them and try to get them fired and get them canceled in culture and pressured to lose their career. So all the doctors in the medical community, they're just encouraging this to happen the same way with the counseling field. A lot of the counselors will never tell a young child or a teenager to not try to transition, so-called. And so it seems like all the powerful forces in society are coalescing against these young people and basically opening the door wide open and saying, yes, we affirm your decision to become a boy if you're a little girl, or we affirm your decision to try to transition to be a girl if you're a boy or a teenage boy. And they're not putting the checks and balances there that are needed for young people because young people don't know how to make decisions yet. They're not mature yet. They're growing. They're developing. They are thinking foolishly. What does the Bible say? Foolishness is bound in the heart of a child. That's true. They need to be trained. They need to learn. They need to learn about what life is all about. And they can't learn that if the adults don't step in and intervene and correct them. And parents are now being pressured to just let their young people do whatever they want, even to the point where they take these puberty blockers and have breast removals and all kinds of foolishness. And this dude that wants a cabinet position, this so-called Rachel Levine now, this guy dressed up like a girl, he has advocated for children and their rights to make decisions about their body that will affect their entire life and bypass their parents' wishes. And he's been all in for that. And Rand Paul wants to try to get him to admit that he's been in for that. And this guy is slippery as a snake, and he won't say anything like that because he is deceptive. He's a liar. He is satanically trying to weasel his way into a position of power. And then once he's in, notice what he said to Rand Paul. He said, if I'm confirmed to this position, I would be happy to come to your office and meet with you and try to explain and discuss and work things out. In other words, confirm me, put me in this position of power where I can do all kinds of damage, and I would be happy to talk with you later after you vote for me to confirm me. See how satanic this is. And as Christians, this is our responsibility. We are responsible. We're the salt of the earth. We have truth from God. It's not like we're blind and we don't know what to do. And here are these important people talking about things that are way over our head. We know exactly what to do. We need to oppose this kind of stuff. And we need to encourage and congratulate senators like Rand Paul who have enough guts and courage to stand against this, which is a lot more than a lot of pastors in the churches are doing today. It's a lot more than some of these ministry leaders in the churches today who are taking a back seat and sitting on the fence and saying, well, we don't want to comment on politics. This is a moral issue. The Bible teaches exactly, specifically about this issue, and we need to not be afraid to say, look, the Bible teaches that men are men and women are women. In the beginning, he made them male and female, book of Genesis. And then in the New Testament, Jesus repeats the Genesis account. He says, don't you remember, in the beginning, he made them male and female. So Jesus takes the teachings of Genesis about two binary sexes, men and women, male, female, and he repeats it in the New Testament. So that's the Christian understanding of sex, is that there is male and that there's female, and couple that with the Old Testament teaching that a man should not wear that which pertains to a woman, and a woman should not wear that which pertains to a man. And you have a moral argument coming from the Word of God against this transgender, transvestite philosophy that is really doing damage in our culture. And we need to put the brakes on this. We need to stop this before it corrupts every single segment of society, including the church.
So I'm alarmed that you won't say with certainty that minors should not have the ability to make the decision to take hormones that will affect them for the rest of their life. Will you make a more firm decision on whether or not minors should be involved in these decisions?
Very clear answer. He's looking for just a simple answer. This man, this transvestite, is already on record in written form. This man has already stated what he views on this issue. And Rand Paul wants him to simply repeat what he has already stated publicly. And let's hear what the dude dressed like a woman, says again.
Senator, transgender medicine is a very complex and nuanced field. And if confirmed to the position of Assistant Secretary of Health, I would certainly be pleased to come to your office and talk with you and your staff about the standards of care and the complexity of this field.
Weasel words.
Let it go into the record that the witness refused to answer the question. The question is a very specific one. Should minors be making these momentous decisions? For most of the history of medicine, we wouldn't let you have a cut sewn up in the ER. But you're willing to let a minor take things that prevent their puberty, and you think they get that back? You give a woman testosterone enough that she grows a beard, you think she's going to go back looking like a woman when you stop the testosterone? You have permanently changed them. Infertility is another problem. None of these drugs have been approved for this. They're all being used off-label. I find it ironic that the left that went nuts over hydroxychloroquine being used possibly for COVID are not alarmed that these hormones are being used off-label. There's no long-term studies. We don't know what happens to them. We do know that there are dozens and dozens of people who've been through this who regret that this happened and a permanent change happened to them. And, you know, if you've ever been around children, 14-year-olds can't make this decision. In the gender dysphoria clinic in England, 10% of the kids are between the ages of 3 and 10.
3 and 10.
We should be outraged that someone's talking to a 3-year-old about changing their sex. I can't vote for you if you can't.
Thank you so much, Senator Paul. Senator Levine, thank you for answering the question. I will turn to Senator Baldwin.
You see how that's couched. Thank you, Senator Rand Paul, and thank you, Dr. Levine, for answering the question. No, she did not answer the question. And so, again, this woman who is on the committee, who is conducting the meeting here, she is part of the problem also, because she's treating this dude dressed like a man, dressed like a woman, in some respectful manner after the guy refused to answer the question, as if he did answer the question. He did not answer the question. And so this is part of the problem. You have people who are trying to act like this is a normal kind of thing. What this person is saying is just as normal as anything can be, and it's not as normal as anything can be. It's an outrage. It's an outrage that we have someone who is interviewing for a top cabinet position in the White House, one of the most powerful people in our country as far as policy goes, and this guy dressed up like a woman will not say that he will oppose children making life-altering decisions about their sexuality, cutting off their breasts if they're young girls. He will not oppose that? When the statistics show that 90% of them at some point later regret their decision to take these powerful drugs or to have these surgical operations done, 90% regret it later and switch back or try to switch back. It's insanity. And we are seeing insanity in our country today like never before. And as Christians, we need to be salt of the earth. We cannot take a neutral position. I know there are a lot of churches and pastors who say, well, I don't want to get involved in politics. I don't want to get involved in political issues. I stay clear of that. I just talk about personal piety issues and how to have a better life and how to have a good marriage and how to raise children right. But think about it. How can you raise children right if you're sending them to schools that teach that a young child at some point in their childhood can decide that they want to be a member of the opposite sex, and that all the adults in their life should take that seriously, and all the counselors at the schools should welcome, oh, you want to become a little boy and you're a little girl now, you should become a little boy. Yeah, we encourage you to do that. Whatever you want to be, it's up to you. No, we don't do that because kids are mixed up. Kids think that they're horses. Kids think that they're dolphins. Kids play role models. They play. They have imaginations. That's part of growing up. They want to be a certain thing, and then a month later, they want to be something else. And if you give them the power to alter their body irreparably, then they are stuck with their foolish choices that they made when they were a small child or a teenager. And this should not be. We need to step in. We need to intervene. There needs to be adults in the room. And this dude dressed in a dress is not someone we want anywhere near power in Washington, because this guy can affect the future of our children. And as Christians, we need to be salt of the earth and say, no, it's not going to happen. Well, that's something to pray about. We'll see you back next week on another edition of Christian Answers. God bless.